So happy morning. Sorry about the technical glitch. So as the Raksters are here with the eminent personalities in sports, we would be taking our viewers, our children, and our panelists through the sports entrepreneurship series planned by Raks. And the reason behind doing having this student series is, as a school, we believe in getting children future ready for the world unknown. And considering these children would be looking at employment and career options at 2030, what does the future hold for these children is something for us to ponder. And as a futuristic school, we do believe it's not just the grades that matter, but children following the passion and making a passion as a profession is something that we are getting children to start looking at and to venture out. And talking about sports, we not only are interested in on-court, but also off-court, and what does it hold for these children. So that has been an intention behind planning a sports entrepreneurship series. And being a sports-oriented school where we give equal importance to sports and academics, we thought it would be ideal to begin with the sports series. So thank you so much for having taken your time off and for having joined us this morning, Dr. Dobson. Dr. Dobson is a badminton player who still plays at the national level, and is also a doctor at, has done his MD in medicine and is a part of the Savita Institute of Sports Sciences, Chennai. We have Mr. Len. Mr. Len Ayappa needs no introduction to the Raks family, and he a former India hockey player and who was appointed by Air India, and until he left the job to pursue his passion of sports merchandise and in sports infra development. Welcome on board, Dr. Dobson and Mr. Len. Mrs. Aparna Rajkumar, still a national level basketball player at 45, and her passion with sports has taken her into being a commentator in the Star Sports as well as DD Sports. Thank you for joining in, Ms. Aparna. Mr. Ryan Rosario would be joining us a little later, as he is a little busy with covering his the races that are happening in Coimbatore. So he would be joining us a little later. So you're good to go, Shreya. You can take it over from here on.
Happy morning. We are delighted and proud to be presenting Series 1 of What Do I Want to Be? It's a platform created by Raksters for Raksters. We, the students of IGCSE and AIS, are proud to be initiating this program. The Student Entrepreneurship Program gives us a unique opportunity to interact with the entrepreneurs who have made their mark, and we have set on a journey of learning from their experiences and seeking their expert advice. So I welcome you all to this series and hope you learn from and enjoy the discussion. You're free to post your questions to the panel through the chat box. We request you all to keep your mics muted and grab that pen and notepad to take note of anything that you might want to.
What do I want to be, which was the introductory session of our student entrepreneurship program, has kindled my thoughts. I would really love to pursue a career in sports. Chatting with my friends that evening, I realized there are so many of us on the same boat.
Exactly. I guess we all have a vague idea about what we want to be, but we still have a lot of questions swirling over our minds. You have no idea how excited I was when I heard the first event under the Student Entrepreneurship Program will be a panel discussion on sports entrepreneurship. I want to become a neurosurgeon and still pursue my favorite sport. This is the right time I would like to know how to bring about that balance. I'm sure I'd get a fair idea through this interaction that we are a part of today.
You know what? I would have never thought about opportunities like sports coaching, sports media, sports medicine, and sport management that goes beyond playing mainstream sports. I'm also quite sure this would be an eye-opener for many of my fellow Raksters and their parents too.
So, for all of you out there, I guess this is the day we've been waiting for. We have an eminent panel of guests from myriad sports-related fields to guide and inspire us.
Let me have the honor of introducing Dr. Dobson. the Associate Professor and Head Sports Medicine at Savita Institute of Sports Medicine and Sports Science. He is the founding Vice President of the Indian Society of Sports and Exercise Medicine, and also a professional badminton player and a former team doctor for the New Zealand cricket team in India. Mr. Dobson is actively involved in research roles, being the Board of Studies members, Sports Biomechanics, Tamil Nadu Sports University, and to top it all up, he has been 10 times state and national champion in badminton. A hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Raksters, for having me in this wonderful sports entrepreneurship program. It's a wonderful platform, and thank you, Ms. Shweta, for having me as part of this panel. We'll go along and finish the others' introduction also, and then we'll have a fruitful interaction. Thank you.
Ms. Aparna Rajkumar, a national level basketball player who is now a sports commentator for Star Sports and DD Sports, is the next member in our panel today. I can't help but wonder how her career has taken flight to such a different platform, from being a sportswoman to getting into sports media. I hope we understand more from you on that, Ms. Aparna. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me over, and definitely we will get around to talking about how I got there and how you can also get there, and we'll do so in a short while after you're done with all the guests. Thank you.
Siddharth, you need to unmute.
Another very interesting personality that we are all very eager to interact with is the man who makes it very difficult for us to continue being at home. Having been behind all the detailing that went into the development of the sports facilities we saw in Racks 3.0, his very own venture, Len and Me, the sports merchandise store in Bangalore, has been a great success. And having been a sportsman himself, he sure knows the trick of the trade. Welcome to our show, Mr. Len, and we can't wait to shoot our questions at you. Thank you for making time to be with us today.
You know what? I actually have some of his merchandise with me, and I'm more than happy to share them with you.
Wow, pretty cool. Hey, who among us does not read newspapers? First from the last, and if we all do, we are sure to be intrigued by our discussion with Mr. Ryan Rosario, the sports editor of The Hindu. Imagine having to cover the news and events across the world. Controversies and awards that our dear sports persons face and earn are all just there. You sure must be having your hands full, Mr. Rosario. Thank you for accepting our invitation and making your presence here. Although it's not the first time we're seeing you, it's the first time we get to interact with you.
It is indeed an honor to have such esteemed panelists, but I wish this interaction was face-to-face, as we missed a golden opportunity to get autographs.
I understand your disappointment, Sriman, but hey, it's not every day that you get to interact with such an outstanding panel. So let's make the most out of the present and make this a fun and fruitful interaction.
I have often felt that our society still considers sports as a hobby and not as a mainstream career. Dr. Dominic, how did you manage to overcome this mindset and pursue your passion for badminton? Also, how did you finally figure out you wanted to pursue medicine instead of badminton as a career? Could you please share your story with us?
Sir, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raksters, for having me in this wonderful sports entrepreneurship platform, especially with such a wide array of expert panel. It's a wonderful opportunity for you young, bright minds to have an understanding of what all options are available in sports. So to start, relating to my personal experience, I was a junior badminton player, and my interest towards sports and medicine, I would like to put it in two terms. One, Sports is my passion, and then I made it into my profession. Okay, so I would like to start with saying that not every sports player, look, sports is for all. Sports is for all, but not every player can make it to the top. Okay, it doesn't mean that you need to lose heart or you're losing avenue. Sports has become a full-time pro course. When I was your age, definitely there was hesitancy in my parents to make me a professional sportsman. Okay, I come from a very rural setup, Kanyakumari, not exactly, not really from Chennai or a city. So from from a rural setup, to consider sports as a profession was a little hard. But then now the avenues have changed and sports definitely has become professional. Okay, so I would say my interest towards sports medicine started when I was doing medicine. Okay, I had played till my national level in junior badminton, and once I decided that I need to deviate to medicine, then I was looking at the end of my graduation, which is MBBS days, to pursue something which is close to my passion, which is sports. Okay, so looking into those avenues, sports medicine still is very new into in India. If you want to be aware, sports science and sports medicine is just 10 years old. Okay, the master's degree which I have done is just 10 years old the whole country. Though it's very popular in West Europe and developed nations, sports science is a new concept in the country. But you need to understand sports to be uh, taken to the next level. You need the support staff also, whether it is a sports psychologist or a sports doctor or a sports physiotherapist. You have a lot of different avenues, sports technologist, sports manager. Now, look, I had the opportunity of being with a professional cricket team like New Zealand, and they used to come with a pretty 15 professional players supported by 15 support staffs. Okay, and all were good professionals in their own rights. So I would like to say as an introductory remark that even though not everybody can become a pro sports player, you need not lose heart. You have a lot of other lateral avenues. You can be a sports medicine doctor, you can be a sports psychologist, you can be a sports physiotherapist, you can be a sports technologist, you can be a sports manager, coach, sports coaching, sports trainer. There are a lot of avenues which are making sports as a profession. Okay, so this would be my introductory advice to you, that sports has become professional now, and there are a lot of avenues in sports for you to consider. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dominic. You have motivated us a great deal.
Miss Aparna, generally there is a preconceived notion that the majority of women don't enjoy or understand sports. How did you break this stereotype, and what motivated you to choose this male-dominated field? How was your journey from a state-level basketball player to a sports commentator?
Thanks again for having me on board. And it is definitely an honor to be among such esteemed panelists and moreover, young, bright minds such as yours. Anyway, so like you said, breaking stereotypes is something of a game to me. And I was born into a family of sports persons, save for my mother. So my father was completely into sports. My brother was into sports. I was into sports. And in fact, I think when I was very, very small, my mother wanted me to learn dance from one esteemed dancer, you know. And then my dad comes home from the office and said, my daughter's not going to learn dance, she's going to play sport. So, you know, even to this day, I thank him for that, the liberal thinking that my father had. And at an age where most parents were applying pressure and saying, you have to achieve, you have to do this, you have to do that, and putting unnecessary pressure on material successes. My father came home one evening and told my brother and me, I don't want you all to get 80, I don't want you all to get 100. Get a 40%, but go and play sport every day. I mean, how many people are lucky to have parents like that? And trust me, I've done the same thing with my children. In fact, when my daughter had her public exams and model exams were going on, I let her go and play her last basketball tournament. And then she says, Ma, everyone is saying study, you're asking me to go play. I said, you'll forget your model exams in a few months, but you'll never forget the last tournament you played for your school. So go and play. So that's the kind of person I am. And yes, I've been very energetic and very active all my life. And also the fact that genetics has played a great deal in my aptitude towards sport, because any sport comes easy to my brother and me. So the fact that I had all this pent up energy and this aptitude towards sport made sure that I played a variety of sport. So no matter which sport I played, I was able to achieve a lot more than what others would do otherwise, even with that exposure that they had. So my propensity to basketball was the fact that it seemed like a very, very fun sport, because I saw my seniors playing it, and without any coaching, I actually learned the sport myself. And it wasn't until I started to make it to the district teams. I made it to the district team when I was 12. I started playing for my under 19 Chennai team. So it was only then I got exposed to, what coaching is, because we really didn't have too many coaches. So a lot of times I would come back and bring that knowledge back to my school, and we started winning and we started achieving so many things. And it was a point of not looking back from there. It was always a challenge. Every single day I had to do better. And it also helped that we didn't have any distractions, so we were completely involved, immersed in sport, put in our 100%. So it would be like I would play in the morning before going to school, before going to class, break time, come out and play. After school, start playing till you're drop dead exhausted, and your parents, decide that you really, really need to get back home, come back home and still play again. So that was how crazy things were. And I don't regret it one bit, because with that kind of involvement in sport and the kind of hours I spent on the playground, I still did well academically, which was also goes to prove that sports persons can study as well. Their capacity to absorb knowledge is also a lot better than kids who don't play sport at all. So this is how I made it from the age of 12 all the way to the junior state, youth state. I've captained the youth state, playing for the senior state team and things like that. And I did take a break from basketball. Getting married, having children and things like that. So commentating came by chance. And also it helped because, my language skills were pretty decent. And the ability to think on the fly is also there. So it doesn't take me very long to assess a situation and break it down analytically, because of my involvement and my knowledge of the sport itself. Having played multiple sports ensured that I had a deep knowledge of almost all the sports that I played. So when the opportunity came, I was actually a spectator watching a national level final. And while I was sitting there waiting for the game to start, this camera crew from DD were there in the audience, and they were trying to shoot the finals. And unfortunately, their commentator bailed on them. So the sports editor comes rushing, looking for a last minute commentator, and some gentleman, I can't remember who it was, comes and points to me in the audience and said, get this lady, she can do a job. She can do the job. I was like, what is going on? I had no clue what they're talking about. So, and then when I heard that they really needed help, I didn't have the heart to say, I can't do it, even though I was nervous as hell. So I did accept it, went and sat. It took me all of 30 seconds to get completely involved into the game. Once my involvement was in the game, it really didn't matter what was happening, and the words just started flying. Right after that final, the sports editor said, I'd like you to be our official commentator for the sport of basketball. And I thought, okay, that was funny. It was a one-off thing. And I had a few setbacks in life, after which a couple of years later, I'm volunteering for the Asian basketball championships that were happening in Chennai. And I see the same sports editor come up and says, where did you disappear? And I thought it was just a simple conversation. He said, okay, now I have a job for you. I need you to commentate for the Asian championships. I'm like, listen, I've only done a local tournament. Now you're asking me to do an international tournament on my second opportunity. He says, I know your capacity, so go mic up and start commentating. So it was almost instantly that I became an international commentator. And it helped because my knowledge and of the game itself and the capacity to be able to speak helped me a lot. And I did gain a lot of repute even with that debut. And I was fortunate enough to be given a lot of opportunities to do a lot of live commentaries, also do some sports casting as well, hold interviews. Now from there, I moved on to doing multiple sports for them. I've even done Southeast Asian fencing. Fencing is something that nobody would touch because it's not a very easily understood sport. So I've also done badminton, volleyball. And right now I've done a lot of almost 12 to 13 sports for Kalo India, commentating for Star Sports. And it also helps that I'm a multilingual commentator. I can speak Tamil as fluently as I speak English. Sometimes, of course, there is a little bit of time that takes to switch from one language to the other, but it helps. And besides that, I'm also the voice of 3BL, which is the one of its kind first FIBA approved 3x3 basketball league in India. It's actually an international league. And we do this is our third season running. And even there, I was given an opportunity as it was a free chance opportunity because the commentator they had signed bailed after the first first weekend of the sport. And then I got signed on. They loved my work so much that I became the official voice of the league itself. And besides that, Star Sports gave me opportunities to also work on the Pro Kabaddi League and things like that. So if you have the aptitude to put yourself behind the mic and also you should have the courage to speak up, of course, and it's not too difficult. Trust me when I say that I was someone whose hands shook when I took the oath as my sports secretary for the college or the school games captain. My hands shook. So everyone knows my stage fright and things like that. But I was able to overcome that. And today to be able to even sit in front of you kids and talk, facing y'all or doing live commentary, I've come a long distance. It really helps if you stay focused to the sport that you love. Keep an open mind to understanding the other sports as well. And when those opportunities come, don't be afraid. Take those opportunities because they won't come knocking too many times. Learn on the job. It's very imperative to keep an open mind and learn on the job. If that happens, the world is your oyster. And it's not just commentating. Like Mr. Dobson said, you do have a lot of career opportunities, even as statisticians and things like that, because that's a relatively new field as well. And statistics and sports media go hand in hand as well. So there are a lot of avenues to which you can channelize your obsession with sport and, live your passions and pursue your dreams. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aparna. That was really inspiring.
Even though the sports page is featured towards the end, it is my favorite part of the newspaper. I am really excited to meet the person who works behind that page. Mr. Ryan, could you please share how you ended up in sports journalism instead of covering politics or business news like any other journalist?
Mr. Rosario, are you able to hear us? Till Mr. Rosario gets back. So Ashwin, I think we would just wait we are unable to hear Mr. Rosario. I think he has some technical glitch at his end. So let us wait till he connects in. And can we have the next question coming up?
I have a question for Dr. Dobson. Typically, the specializations that MBBS graduates take for their higher studies are general medicine, cardiology, oncology, etc. So what made you choose sports medicine? Was it your passion towards sports that motivated you? And most importantly, what are the specific courses or specializations that would help us in an illustrious career like you?
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's a pretty easy answer for me because, as I already told you, I was a junior level badminton player, national level badminton player, and it was a pretty easy decision for me to choose on this specialty. But as I've already told, sports specialty medicine courses was pretty new to India as a concept 1 decade before. But right now, and especially when you people reach the college level, I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of options, right from becoming a sports doctor to a sports physiotherapist. You have different avenues like that, sports science avenues. Uh, it's all depending on your passion. Okay, so personally for me, it was a very easy decision, but I had to struggle a lot. Okay, so since sports medicine in India was not so popular, and even now there is very limited awareness that such a speciality is available. Okay, so you need to be aware that there are what I have done is post MBBS, and it is a recognized post graduation. It's called MD in Master's Degree in Sports Medicine. Just like how you're told on somebody can specialize in MD in General Medicine or MD in Pediatrics or a surgeon. I wanted to be a sports medicine physician. So primarily, what I do is I travel with different professional teams, and I'm the doctor on field also. Okay, so this demands a special set of sub skills. So we, as sports medicine doctors, are always traveling with the team. Say, for example, now with a lot of private leagues like IPL for cricket, ISL for soccer, you have IHL for hockey. A lot of injuries happen inside the sporting arena. Okay, so you need professional medical support for the athlete even on the field of play. Okay, say for example, Len is an international hockey player, so he'll be able to relate the hardness of a ball. When if you see the hockey players, they'd be really having a lot of gadgets to protect the body, different servers. Goalkeeper has to have a full cover, okay, because of the hardness of the ball. The ball hits the head, he might get a concussion. Okay, so these are all special conditions only the sports medicine doctor will be able to address. Okay, and you also come across pretty serious conditions. It doesn't mean that just being a sports player, you are immune to any medical conditions. I have come across even a heart attack happening inside the sporting arena. So there are risk factors which are involved for the sports player and the athlete, and that brings us to the addressing that medical conditions. So for that only this speciality of sports medicine came into play, and that is where we as sports medicine doctors predominantly work along with the teams in the field, address the concerns, injuries. So this is a multidisciplinary course basically. So we sports medicine doctors will be there will be physiotherapists. Not everybody will become a doctor. Somebody will be more keen about turning into a physiotherapist. Okay, so you can also become a physiotherapist, and there is a lot of avenues, a lot of job opportunities in that area. You also have several sub sports science avenues which are all available for you. So my advice to you would be just follow your passion, but keep playing. That is what I would like to say. Ms. Shweta, Len, I'm pretty sure all in the panel, we are all here because of our fundamental passion being sports. If we don't have this passion, I don't think we need to be in this field at all. Okay, so for you to take the passion to the next level as a profession, I would say that you have a lot of avenues, whether it's medicine, whether it's media, whether it's merchandising, whether it is technology, you have a lot of ideas. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor, for
Thank you.
being so insightful.
Mr. Len, what motivated you to convert your passion for sports into a business enterprise?
First of all, I would like to thank everyone here for having me over. And it was wonderful hearing Dr. Dobson and Aparna ma'am stories. So I just want to put across my small story, how I started my hockey career and what I'm doing right now. So I come from a place called Coorg in a part of Karnataka. So there, hockey is very familiar and very famous. Everybody in the family, they play hockey. So luckily, I was born in a family where two, three internationals were there in my family, and they represented the country also. So in my school, when I started going to the school, everybody used to carry the sticks and come to the school and start playing in the lunch breaks and PT periods and all that. So that inspired me, and I started taking up this sport very seriously. When I came to high school, we had school teams and participating in various tournaments, school tournaments, and we were very eagerly looking forward for those tournaments. And it was very serious at those school times, and even in the exam times also the teachers used to give us permission to go and practice and play well, and that's how I started hockey. So once I got into ninth standard, so immediately there was a selection in my hometown Coorg for sai Sports Authority of India. So that's where my life entirely changed. So I got into this, I attended the selections and I got selected for this Sports Authority of India, a scheme called NSTC. So I first joined NSTC in Bangalore. I was very lucky enough to join NSTC Center in Bangalore, St. Joseph's Indian High School, where when I went there, there are a lot of internationals coming out to that training center, the ground, where I could see all the internationals wearing nice shoes and tracksuits and carrying nice sticks and all that. That inspired me more to take up this sport very seriously. And after that, there was no stop. So with the sport I even I could manage education also, but mainly I wanted to do take up hockey. I wanted to play for the country, and I started dreaming big. And whenever I entered the field, I just wanted to play. So I never thought of anything but just play. So after I came to Bangalore, that was a different story. And one thing I would like to mention to all you Raksters is uh, equally education is also very important. When you play a game, that takes you a long way. When you're very serious in that profession, that sport, be very serious in your education also. And coming back to my career, once I started playing, then I got into the senior hostel. That is every single thing, uh, the expense of my school, my kids, my travel, everything was taken care from sai Sports Authority of India, that's the Indian government sports board. Everything was taken care. My parents didn't have to spend much on my education or my sport or my kit. So everything was taken care. So that is one thing I really thank Sports Authority of India for giving me an opportunity and bringing me here. And of course, you need to be very, very hardworking player, both in the ground as well in the classes. So after finishing, when I entered the college, immediately, since I was playing well, immediately I got a chance to play for Air India. So immediately I had to shift my base from Bangalore to Air India, Mumbai. So that was a big push for me. And once I started playing in Mumbai, I got a good exposure in sport. And I was a contract player there in Air India. So immediately after a year, once I started playing there, and then I started improving myself, and then I did my correspondence for my education to complete my graduation and all that. And so after getting into Air India, the exposure was really, really good. I could travel all over the world, all over the country, and I got to meet a lot of legends, hockey legends, and other sportsmen also. So that's how I got inspired, and I started working harder and harder in hockey. So that is one thing. Hockey gave me everything in my life. So even now, once I got into Air India, then a different company called me, and I jumped into Bharat Petroleum as a manager. That was my first job. Before it was I was a contract player in Air India. So once I joined as a contract player in Bharat Petroleum, so it was very serious in the work, and also they gave me a lot of opportunities, and they gave me a good job, good post in the company, and all that. But that's the time when I started representing the country. So I hardly used to go to the office and things like that. And the more than everything, the respect what I got when I went to the office, and whenever I meet people, when you represent a country, it is amazing. It is you cannot match with anything else. So after that Bharat Petroleum career, immediately I was doing very well in the country. So immediately Air India called me back and gave me a better position in the company. And I was a manager in the Bangalore airport until 2016. So I, more than everything, once I started representing the country, a lot of European countries started calling me to go and play the European League. And I was in Italy for 5 years just because of hockey. And I was in Malaysia for 5 years. And I traveled all over the world with the Indian national team. And that is a great support and help for my family and things like that. So
Really nice to
after
hear your experiences on court and off court when it comes to hockey, and how you were taken in by Air India and also Bharat Petroleum. And we until we get back next, we want to hear from you the shift that you made from
yeah.
your being a player to being a merchandiser. Before that, we just have one request. We have Mr. Ryan Rosario, who's just logged in with us and who needs to leave. So can we just finish up with him for a minute, please?
Yes.
So the Raksters, you could take up your question with Mr. Ryan.
Even though the sports page is featured towards the end, it is my favorite part of the newspaper. I am really excited to meet the person who works behind that page. Mr. Ryan, could you please share how you ended up in sports journalism instead of covering politics or business news like other journalists?
Mr. Rosario? I think he's muted because he didn't want us to listen to the car races at the background. Okay, until we get back or he comes back online, can we go to the next? So coming back to Mr. Len, what was the reason for you to make a shift from being an active sportsman to getting into sports merchandise? What attracted you, or what was the reason behind it? Because I do see when we had visited your store in Bangalore, we did see that you had a different approach to the products you had made, because though we have different big brands playing across, we didn't see the detailing of the products that you had off your shelf. So what inspired you to make a shift from being an active sportsman to a merchandiser and an infra developer?
Yeah, that's a good question, ma'am. Actually, once I finished my hockey career in 2012, after I got back from Europe, and then I wanted to start something on my own. But Air India, I had to be there with Air India also, since they had given me a job. So working in after your playing career, working in a company from morning 9 to 5 job, it's really really difficult. I used to find it very difficult, but still I could manage for 10 years. After that, one day I decided to do something on my own. So that is one in 2014 I decided to open up a company called Len and Me. Initially we started with retail merchandise, and then we opened 4 retail outlets in Bangalore and all over Karnataka. So mainly what I used to think is when I used to play, I used to never get a proper set of jerseys and shorts and sticks what I wanted. So that is when I decided, let me get deep into this and start procuring things and start designing the jerseys and shorts and sticks and other sports equipments. So when I really started, I really enjoyed doing it. And then since I came from a sports background, I knew what the other players wanted in the ground. So I started developing that one by one. We got into retail. After retails, we started supplying materials to the schools. So when got into schools, schools started liking all the materials whatever we made, and they started giving me more orders, and we started enjoying the orders and things like that. In 2016, what happened was, one of the school in Bangalore, since we were already doing business with them, they gave me an opportunity to do sports surfacing. That is, they asked me to do a sports ground, multi-purpose sports ground, mainly for football and athletics. So since she gave me an opportunity, I started doing that. Once we did the first football turf in Bangalore, then after that they liked it, and then immediately they gave us all the other, like basketball, swimming pool, and badminton courts, all the orders. So I started.
Basically, sorry to interrupt. So it's basically your passion that has taken you, into the school segment also, and which made you shift to the infra development. So what is the one thing that you feel you miss, and if you feel you had done it back there, like when we talk about a startup company, students should look into, the business studies aspect of it, or the accountancy aspect of it when starting a startup company or a merchandising company. What is that one thing you actually missed out, or you feel if you would have done better if you had done that then? For instance, a paper in business studies, or a paper in accountancy, or with sports, that could have taken you to a better place. Do you ever feel that? So that, it's basically to tell our children that, not enough if you just have your passion. We also need to be educated and qualified in a place where, we could link both to take us to the futuristic goal, or to the future, what future holds for us. Is there anything that you would like to tell the children, that, alongside passion, what is the other thing that they also need to work on?
Yes, ma'am. I was about to come to that point. First of all, one thing I want to tell you in sports, like example, education is really, really important. When I'll just tell you a small instance where, when we had a small foreign coaches here in India, trying to coach us, and trying to transform the European standard of game to Indian hockey. That is where we from south, most of them were educated, but from North India, players like from Punjab and Orissa, they found very difficult to communicate with the coaches and to understand what is the strategy for the game, what is the technical details to be implemented in the game. So that is where few of the players who could not complete their graduation and complete their education, they used to find very difficult to understand the strategies from the foreign coach. So that was one of the reason I always tell everyone that studies is really important. The first comes is studies, then later on is sports. But if you can match this both, nothing like it, you can, I can, sky is the limit. So when it comes to business, yes, I of course, I tell everyone that I should have done masters or something like that. Since with my busy hockey schedules, I could not do more than the graduation. But when it comes to business, I think there are a lot of different levels. And also example, now we have sports infra. There's so much of detailed uh, education or research to be done on surfacing for all kind of sports. Like example, for football, there are so many subbase and all the granules, everything is involved. So you need to really know
So
the
are we trying to say,
calculation.
sorry to interrupt, so are you trying to say that a sports architect or a sports infra developer per se is the need of the hour? Because
Yes,
technically,
ma'am.
I think, people are looking at building landscapes and building schools and
Yes.
building houses, but do you find the need for sports architecture, sports builders? So do you think there is a niche segment where children can, look at that option as well?
Yes, ma'am. That's what, ma'am. The main thing is 99.9% of the architects here in India, they don't know much about sports surfacing and sports infrastructure. So if you can do some masters in that, there's nothing like it. You can really, the main thing is the measurements of football field, athletic tracks and badminton courts and things like that. And also the interior designing. Most of them, like example in badminton court, the roof and the side wall need to be dark. Most of the architects and engineers don't know about those things. If there's some degree on that, or some university which can come up and do some studies on this and give an opportunity for all the students to do this kind of degree, it will be really great for the Indian sportsmen.
Actually, NUS, and there are a lot of universities abroad which focus on sports infra development, infra, sports interior designers, sports e-commerce, sports legal team. So it's only in India maybe we have it restricted, but there are a lot of opportunities for children who would want to pursue sports as a career choice as well. Thank you, thank you, Mr. Len. Now,
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
going back to Mr. Dr. Dominic, while planning this event with the children, I did read that there is a lot of research happening towards making enhanced athletes versus natural athletes, where you work on enhancing their muscles or the enhancing the oxygen level, to the extent that there is also research happening in rebuilding super athletes. So what's your take on that? So is this all, are we going to look at a total new era where, there is a lot of sports medicine going towards making sports people? So is that
Yeah,
something for us to, ponder? And I think the Indian segment of children can look at those options as well. Right, Dr. Dominic?
yeah, excellent question, Shweta. Actually, sports medicine works in two spectrums. One in the injury or the illness management on field. The off-field work is predominantly towards, as you said, performance. Okay, so when you talk in terms of athletic or sports performance, you got a lot of new areas which are available. As you said, exercise physiology for a runner, for a sprinter, for a marathoner. You need specific type of fitness. Okay, somebody like a sprinter will require very explosive strength and explosive energy. Okay, and for a marathoner, there is a different type of training which is required. Similarly, each and every sports has their own unique aspects. That is what we call the sports-specific fitness. So sports medicine and sports science definitely has a huge role in bringing about performance. So that is where all this elite teams now have something called high performance programs. So when in terms of high performance programs, the Europe and the developed nations are far ahead, I would say, compared to India. India is slowly catching up, but still the area of research and technology is compared to them is still in a nascent stage. So definitely the areas which with the sports medicine and sports science fraternity can help the athletes not only in terms of the medical part, but also in terms of the performance part. So performance part, you have a lot of array in terms of areas or discipline which the Raksters can look into it. Okay, as I told, you have we in our department we offer courses like MSc in exercise physiology, MSc in biomechanics. So these are all post BSc programs. You definitely need to do some basics, whichever field, okay, whichever. So if you're interested in sports medicine, then definitely you need to do a graduate program in medicine. Similarly, if you need to do a specialization in technology or a specialization in performance training, strength and conditioning. Now, a lot of elite athletes have the individual trainers. Okay, so that is becoming a huge area of interest. Okay, so this as sports is becoming more and more professional. Now it's not like the previous decade where you have only a set number of tournaments or limited grand slams or things like that. Now, if you don't have a national duty, you have a private league coming up. So the athlete always has to be ready. Conditioning is very important. Discipline is very important. Nutrition is another huge area. Sports nutrition. Okay, so these are all specialized fields which will enhance the performance of the sports player or the athlete. And there is a lot of areas. Sports nutrition is there. Sports strength and conditioning is there, exercise physiology is there, sports psychology, mind training is very important for elite athletes. So these are all which falls under a bracket called sports science areas, which the students can definitely be looking forward to. And this will, I'm pretty sure in the coming decade, it will take up in a big area, big manner.
Thank you so much for these inputs. Do we have anyone else coming up with your questions?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Aparna, is there a specific course that we need to pursue to be a sports commentator? And what do you think your advice would be for those who take such a profile? What would you have liked to do back in the time when you pursued these courses that would have made things easier for you?
Yeah, so now there are courses such as sports broadcasting and things like that, which are available abroad, but not here. But even so, these courses require that you be there in person rather than do a distance program, because there are a lot of online, there are a lot of live assignments that you need to do to gain the course credit that is required to pass these courses. So as of now, we are still a little stuck in time, and we haven't made the progress so far to get those courses in India. Hopefully that will happen in the near future. But the point is that if you want to get off to a career like mine, which started by chance, I think the easiest path would be is to follow every sport passionately, understand the nuances of the game, understand how strategies work in the game, and also don't be afraid to emote. Like, for example, if I'm watching a very, very close basketball game. So I'm just going to give you a scenario over here, and I hope you have the time for me to take you through this. Shweta, may I?
Sure, you could, but can we have your video turned on, please?
All right. I'm sorry. Anyway, so if we are watching a basketball game, which is like really, really close, I'm going to do a couple of, a few seconds voiceover to tell you how this works. Let me say, okay, let me take you through this. So India, Anita Pauldure has taken the rebound. She is now passing the ball on to Shweta, and now Shweta takes the inbounds pass. She makes it, gives it to a layup to the cutting person, and she makes the shot. What a beautiful shot! Bahut acha. Is this fine? Or would I say, Anita Pauldure has grabbed that rebound and she makes that outbound pass to Shweta. Shweta off to a streaking Priya there who makes it, and it's off the glass. The shot is in, and that's 2 more points for India, and India have won this game. See the difference? You are not afraid to emote. When you don't feel afraid to emote, this is what happens. You bring the games live. And if I don't feel passionate about what I'm looking at and what I'm commentating, you guys will mute the volume and you'll be cursing the lights out of me. And you will just be watching a game as it progresses in front of your TV screens. So you need to be more colorful when you express yourself. Don't feel shy to enjoy what you're commentating about, and that itself would stand you in good stead. Once you cross these barriers, these I feel are the most important things which most commentators fail to acknowledge and give enough importance to. This really makes a difference for you to be a successful commentator. In the absence of such courses, then I suggest that you use these shortcuts, because these are some things that fortunately or unfortunately for a lot of other people comes fairly natural to me, because I'm that ebullient as a personality when it comes to sport. So try these techniques and see, maybe you can do a few mock sessions. I could sit with you, come to Racks, and when you have your internal tournaments or any sport, I can sit there and help you through these nuances, and we can do a few mock sessions. So that will give you some knowledge and probably a rough training to get you set for a career in broadcasting.
Thank you so much. I think your experiences and your commentary I could see the smiles coming back, at their faces. So we would definitely like to have you over, and we would like to take it forward from there on. Yeah. So who's the next in line to have your questions put up? Hello? Do you have any other questions coming up? So before we go on to the next question, during, again, with the research happening with these children back, I did come across opportunities in esports, future amenities like, sports amenities, esports, broadcasting, sports cafe, sports restaurants, and nutritionists, even maybe not in India, but even in the other countries, they're also looking at sports chef, to travel around with the teams. So these are all the opportunities available for children who aspire and who have the passion towards sports to venture out, right? So so what are the things that we have with the sports? We have sports medicine, we have different forms of medicines, we have the physiotherapy that goes on, we have Dr. Dobson telling us on how sports medicine actually works. We have biomechanics in place. Biomechanics is nothing but telling whether a player could make it big in sports, whether he has the physical ability, or his physique would even take him places if he goes in with one sport. So that is something that that you could also look at exploring. We have sports analysts, we have sports statistical experts coming in, we have sports management and sciences, sports R&D developers, sports app builders. So we have a whole lot of things that can go into the sports segment, right? So Ashwit, Jayeshnu, Tejas, any more questions for our panelists right here?
Yes, ma'am. I think the main reason...
Ryan, are you back? Okay, go ahead.
I think the main reason why sports take a backseat is because it is difficult to balance both sports and academics. Honestly, I think it is a struggle already. Dr. Dominic, since you successfully scaled through the demands of a professional course without compromising on sports, could you please share some tips on how we can balance sports and academics?
Yeah, again, a very good question. I would say, look, fundamentally sports will require a lot of discipline. Okay, so this disciplined lifestyle is something, if you imbibe right from your young age, is going to be of help even in your academics. Okay, so I would say that it is not difficult if you really strive for that and if you really plan properly. Then balancing your academics and sports is not a big difficulty. I personally haven't found it really difficult. But yes, there are limitations if you are from a rural background or from a lower socioeconomic status. Uh, there are definitely some difficulties. But overall, I would say the most important points for you to have is time management. Time management is important. Okay, so for you to be a professional player, you definitely need to balance your training, or you might also require to do some conditioning along as part of, in addition to coaching, you might have to do some physical conditioning. Or, and as you grow higher, scale higher with your age group, you might also become a pro sports player. You will also have to look into the other supportive aspects like your nutrition, your mental aspect. But if you plan your time management, then I would say looking after your academics might not be a big issue. But then once you become a professional, whether you're a sports player, what you have to take a call at the end of your school days. I would say around 10th to 12th, you might have to take a call whether you need to turn pro sports player, or take, you can keep playing sports, but you might not everybody. Look, Len is an international player. It's always Shweta, in fact, is a masters level international player. I've always dreamed to represent the nation, but not everybody can do that. Okay, so because the competition is pretty high, there are so many thousands of people, thousands of youngsters who will be competing. Okay, so nothing to be disheartened. I had my own sporting achievement, which I'm really proud about. And then you might have to come at a decision making time. I would say that will be around your +1 or +2, your grades, higher secondary time. That is the time when you might have to really take a call whether to pursue sports as a profession or to turn towards another sports science profession and continue playing sport as a passion. Okay, so if you're able to make these decisions, then I would say that your career will be fruitful and happy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dobson. We have a question coming up from people who are seeing us on Facebook. What does the future hold for sports sciences in India?
Okay, the future is huge. The future is huge in the sense that sports as a profession is picking up in India as a hugely, right from the booming of various private leagues. Okay, so now you have money coming into the sports. Previously, when I'm pretty sure when Shweta or me were playing junior days, our parents would always have an apprehension whether our kids will make enough money out if we choose sports as the main one. Now, I don't think many parents have. Okay, even from a rural backup, if you see the Natarajan from a very rural background, now you see the whole village celebrating him. Okay, so but there is huge money coming into sports and sports science. Okay, sports science also there is a lot of money coming in because all these private leagues are employing sports science professionals, whether it's an analyst or whether it's a physiotherapist or a nutritionist. You have professionals traveling along with the players, so that makes the support staff a lot more technical. So the sports science team definitely will be traveling along with the athletic teams, and there is definitely a good amount of money in the So if somebody wants to take up sports science as a profession, I would say this is the right time. Okay, there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of money in that field.
I think also there are a lot of overseas universities which are also funding and sponsoring children. There are a lot of sponsorships available for the niche segment of courses if opted, and if you are really, you make it there. So the possibilities and there are a lot of possibilities, and it's up to your children on how they want to venture out and what their purpose statement holds for them.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Dobson. Whom do we have next? I think we have a question coming up from Ms. Aparna or Mr. Len.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Karan.
So, Mr. Len, I've heard the bigger. This question is for Ms. Aparna. Could you please elaborate on what are some of the other career prospects in sports media that we can explore?
Okay, so in sports media, you also have something wherein you can direct, get into mainstream media itself, but with a specific to sport related activities. So you can go into the shooting specifics of sports itself. So direction of such things plus sound engineering and lighting, all these also have, these are very unique to sports. Okay, so any cameraman cannot cover a sporting event. You have to know how to cover sports in a specific way. So there is also sports media directorship, producing. Those possibilities are also quite endless. And now that you don't have to, you can always be a freelancer doing these things, and you can get, you don't have to be necessarily attached to a production house, but your freelancing company as a freelancer itself, you can start getting opportunities where these production houses will get back to you and assign you on for specific tournaments, and you can have your own media team surrounding you, specifically sport related. So covering these events can become a specialty itself. So you can cover those angles of production.
So, Miss Aparna, like, what is the right time to start to become a good commentator?
Start now. It's never too late. Why don't you do this next time when school starts or when your friends are playing a game? Why don't you sit on the sidelines and see if you can just jabber away looking at what you see in front of you, looking at the visual in front of you, jabber away. It doesn't matter whether you're making sense or not. Eventually, you will start making sense. You will start getting more expressive, more colorful, and you will stop feeling shy about being heard, being emotive. So these are important things. There's no right age or a wrong age to do this. Just have fun, but just make sure you understand the game that is happening in front of you. Get to know about the strategies. You may not be an athlete 100%, but you can talk to your friends and say, hey, why did you move that? Why did you make that move over there? Or why is it that you stopped defending that person and switched your attention to someone else when you could have stuck on to this person and defended that person? So you have to understand the strategies that go and see why and what makes the sport tick on the floor. Once you get your hand on that pulse, it's easy to go. Don't wait later. Go ahead and start now. And maybe Ms. Shweta, being an avid sports person herself, maybe we could set up a mock, a media center for you guys with a mic and a couple of speakers, so that every game that is being played into school or your tournaments start getting, locally channelized through your YouTube channel or your live feed within your schoolmates, so that you get the hang of it and you start learning faster.
That's a fantastic idea, Ms. Aparna. I think we'll definitely go for it.
I'm sure you do.
And we do have one of our students who couldn't join us today. He sends in a comment for you where he mentions, only an effective commentator can make the play more interesting, ma'am. Proud of you. That is said, that is put forth by our one of our student called Kaushik, who is unable to join us today. So he has sent that comment in for you, Ms. Aparna.
Thank you so much, Kaushik. Appreciate getting these feedbacks from avid sports fans.
Ms. Aparna, and what are the prospects that make commenting more interesting?
the prospects per se, let's say, if you see the joy itself is just being in the moment and being able to express yourself and following your passion. But I agree, passion will not feed you. But still, as long as you're with good production houses, and if it's a sport that has a decent amount of funding, or if there's a decent amount of sponsorships coming in to produce that particular tournament itself, then the chances of you earning more on that gig are definitely better. But a lot of times, like for example, the cricket commentators definitely get paid a lot more when compared to probably a kabaddi commentator or a basketball commentator, simply because our sports are really not very high on the TRP ratings, or even if the TRP ratings are there, we don't have enough sponsors to come and fund in the tournament itself. When that happens, we just have to be happy with what we get and feel the satisfaction that we have just lived our passion through doing a job well done, basically, and enjoying the sport as we speak.
Miss Aparna, isn't the job of a commentator very difficult? You need to be spontaneous, interesting, and accurate at the same time. Could you please talk about the challenges that you faced in your career?
Yes, it is a very difficult thing, in the sense that if you don't know your sport, you can end up saying a lot of ridiculous things, and it sounds really, really bad in front of a camera audience. But let me put it this way. Let me give you a small example. This was my first big gig, and I was, like I said earlier, I was commentating for the Asian Basketball Championship, and that was covered by DD Sport. And my first gig was with my co-commentator who had 40 plus years of experience commentating multiple sports in DD Sport. And I was nervous as heck, because I'm a rookie, an absolute greenhorn, being paired with such a, somebody who's got so much of experience behind him. It so happened that Lebanon was playing another country, I forget which one it was, and they were playing a game in front of us, and we were commentating for it. There is a lull in the scoring. And the commentator, for lack of anything to say, says a thing like, Aparna, don't you think the current run rate is very slow? I almost fell off the chair. We are watching a basketball championship, for heaven's sake. How can you say something like that? I will never forget that. And that instant, my respect for that gentleman went out of the window. And I'm turning around to look at my seniors over there and the sports director. They're looking at me and making signs like this. Cut him off, you do the talking, you do the talking. That is absolute embarrassment, because this is the live feed that is going on all channels in Asia, covering the world, the Asian Basketball Championship. How do you think that sounds? That is ridiculous. So if you do not understand the sport, do not accept the gig. Or make an effort to understand the sport, spend some time doing a few mock sessions over games, watching it on video, and probably muting the original volume and start talking over it until you get your facts right, or don't do it at all. It's an absolute embarrassment.
I'm able to connect with you because I hope, I'm not sure if you remember how you roped me into one of the commentary at Tirupur for the Masters League, and how I really struggled alongside you, which I couldn't take up. Yeah, so any more questions coming up for Mr. Len, children?
I have a question for Dr. Dobson.
Camera's turned on, please, Sanjay. Yeah, go ahead.
Doctor, could you please give some insights on the scope of sports medicine and options we can explore in India and overseas?
Yeah, okay. So the options, as I said, are on the rise, okay? So this is a new field and it is a growing field, okay? So for think in terms of two branches. If you are interested in science or a medicine background, then you like to look in terms of few domains like a sports medicine doctor, which you have to do pursuing. First, you need to do your graduation, which is MBBS, and then only you can specialize in a sports medicine per se. Okay, it's not like immediately after your schooling you can just enter sports medicine. No, you won't be able to do. Okay, because medicine, you need to have the basics. So we are fundamentally doctors who are specialized in this specialty. Okay, so that is one area. So that is a very, very niche community in the country. I would say that's very, very few sports medicine doctors around, even less than 100. Okay, so that is an area where you will have a lot of opportunities. The other area is the sports science area. Okay, where you can specialize and go straight away from your +2 also. Okay, so after your schooling, if you want to become a strength and conditioning coach, yes, there are, if you want to be a trainer, then you have avenues for that. If you need to do sports science courses like nutrition or a physiotherapy or a biomechanics, then you need to have your graduation done under that field. Like if you want to be a physiotherapist, you need to do your BPT and then specialize on the sports physiotherapy. Similarly, if you want to do a nutrition, you might have to do a basics BSc in nutrition, and following which you can do something on sports nutrition. So this specialty currently is a master specialty, but there are a lot of colleges and universities which are offering both a graduate and postgraduate courses. Okay, sports science, definitely there are a lot of colleges, because the place where I work, it's called Savita University or Savita Institute of Sports Medicine and Sports Science. We have both undergraduates, which is after your schooling. So you can specialize on something called BSc in Sports Science. BSc in Sports Science, you will have a broad understanding on all the various sectors. But for you to specialize, you might have to do something called MSc program. Okay, so for you from schooling, I would say 2 domains, 2 branches. Either you specialize in medicine or you specialize in a sports science branch, where there are a lot of opportunities available and a lot of universities are offering the courses. Hope I have cleared it.
Yes, sir, you did. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for having taken your time off and for having made it possible. And I'm sorry for having it extended by half an hour or so. We would be having y'all over when things settle in and post-pandemic, just to take students and our viewers on what subject choices the students and parents can look at, considering sports as an option. I would want Ms. Purnima to take you through on what the subject combinations a child could look at if they want to either take sports medicine or sports management, sports infra development. To you, Ms. Purnima.
Happy afternoon. Well, with subjects that are offered by Cambridge, we see that children can choose whether it is with regard to business administration or with regard to sports and physical education. Of course, apart from English and math being a core subject, we see that children can take PE, that is physical education. They could look also at food and nutrition, which is another subject which is offered by Cambridge. There's also physical sciences. Now, physical sciences is a subject which does not cover biology, but is also taken up by engineering students. And you also have business studies. Business studies and economics is something that children can form the foundation for children who want to take up entrepreneurship or want to understand the nuances of their own startup companies if they are looking forward to that. And IT and ICT are options that children could look at with regard to gaining a further foundation, a stronger foundation with technology. Accounting, economics is definitely important for those who would like to take up commerce or business administration related subjects. Now, physical education is also another option that could be added to those who are looking at medicine itself. Like Mr. Dobson told us that he needed his MBBS to be the strong foundation, and he would not be able to specialize further until we have a passion for sports. So for those children who are looking at a sports-based career to match their passion, they would do well, they would benefit if they take up PE. And we also have Jaishnu among us who has taken up PE, and we see how it has improved his understanding of science and biomechanics also. Thank you, Mishra.
Also have a list of combinations of subjects that students who pursue to take sports, sports engineering, sports medicine, sports business administration, sports physical education, and the non-facilitating. So we have shared the subject and the subject codes for parents and children who would like to take this forward. And before we end, any more questions for our panelists? Shreya, you're good to go.
That brings us to the end of our first entrepreneurship speaker series. We will definitely cherish this morning forever. We thank you all for graciously accepting our invitation. A big thank you to Ms. Shweta and our team of teachers from this phenomenal exposure. Till we meet again, let's keep this entrepreneurial spirit alive and make it a Raksters way of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Aparna, can you end with a commentary for our learners? Because I would like to see them end with a smile.
Okay, so we've had an amazing session so far with so many different panelists and a lot of young minds over there asking probing questions, and it has not been a very boring afternoon after all. And then we have had Mr. Len Ayappa come up with his phenomenal career rise, and Dr. Dobson also telling us how he treats his patients. And man, that was quite a knowledge that we gained. And yes, we have had all these youngsters shooting up those questions and keeping us on the edge of our toes. And at the end of this, little Raksters are always the winners, and Ms. Shweta has made you a lot of promises, and if she doesn't hold those promises to good effect, I am going to question her, hold her by the ears, and ensure she gives them all that she has promised, and she will deliver it and more. Thank you, guys.
I asked for it and I got it, I guess. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Dobson.
Thank you, ma'am. Fantastic.
My absolute pleasure, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.